I choose death is what separates the weak.
I am well acquainted with savage, and now you see that I have got one piece in the relentless arbitrary.
You cheated! Master! Death holds no...
I'm afraid.
Bye-bye. You kill so good, Exile.
You surprise me, Hillock. This way, exile. We need not
low on mana.
I'm no traitor.
Did you see that? It does not. We have come to an accord.
I need more copies.
Blessings. Blessings. Exile?
Just need a moment to catch my breath.
Alright. I'm gonna go through a bit of the theory behind Spectral Helix Trickster. Some mechanics behind poison, and why I think in some ways most of the players are building the character kind of wrongly. So for one, given that this league has certain interesting changes, the way we're going about gearing is slightly flawed, and that is this. So when it comes to poisons, a lot of players seem to think that the way you clear stuff is that you do a lot of poison damage in your Spectral Helix, and that's all you need. The truth is, Spectral Helix is just one means of spreading your poisons. Ideally, you want your poisons to be prolific through explosions, to have damage that scales off mob HP, right? You do this with ignites, with let's say obliterations 1 or profane bloom. I think Runthrough's build uses either on obliterations or uses profane bloom ascendancy. In this case with assassin, you don't really have much choice in explodes, mainly because you don't have obliterations, you don't have a wand, so you have only kind of two options available. One is a rare chest for Crusader, which obviously it's going to be expensive, hard to gear for, and generally won't have good stats. And secondly, you can do that with Azanas. And just because this league, Azanas is super cheap, there is a divination card for Asanas with dual corruptions. You can get a dual corrupted Asanas for a pretty cheap price if you can snag one. And this you can get for maybe like 5 or 6 divines. For one that is not corrupted, you can get it under 1 divine. So the reason why you want this is because 1, it gives you temporal chains on hit. So that means you can curse all the mobs you hit with temporal chains. This increases the duration of the debuffs you apply to them. That includes withered, includes poisons that you apply on them, and that also includes stuff like Delividate. So this one, Delividate enemies for 1 second. You suppress their spell damage. I think it is increased by the duration. The duration is increased by temporal chains. So temp chains is good for this build for that reason. The other reason is that curses you inflict are not removed from dying enemies, which means that your dying enemies will apply a curse aura that allows you to prolift the explodes through the pack. And secondly, because it is a 100% chance to explode, doing 3% of their life as physical damage, that 3% of their life as physical, you can poison off it. You just need enough chance to poison on hit, right? And generally, chance to poison on hit is hard to find, but I'll show you like multiple options where you can get it. So because of that, I would say that most people aren't going this, which I think is a big problem. You should be going this for the sole reason that it improves your clear by a significant amount, and it improves your ability to chain clear rooms. And this also allows you to be less tanky than you ordinarily need, because Spectral Helix has the issue of you having to move ahead of the mob in order to do damage. With this, you don't have that issue, because the moment you kill a certain pack of mobs, you will destroy the rest of them, right? Because of the poison and the explodes. They will react to each other. So you explode, the explodes create poisons, the poisons will kill more mobs, the mobs will then explode subsequently, and from the explosions, you will then get more poisons, and they will proliferate through. I'm gonna
Just need
sell
a
this, give me
moment
a
to
sec.
catch my breath.
Unless he doesn't want to buy it, or he does.
Low on mana.
So, with the poison prolifs, that's one thing I think most players are missing out on. They're not doing this, which I think is a problem. And the other reason why most people don't actually want to go this is because chance to poison, generic or rather global chance to poison, is hard to find, and you can only find it in certain like locations on the map, on the passive tree. So for this, you will have, I think, a generic chance to poison here. So that's 10. That's 15. So that's 25%. This is attack, I think. So there's only 25% here, chance to increase poison on hit. And then if you go this, you have a chance to ignite, pre-shock, and poison curse enemies. So this gives you 20% if you can't find the other sources of it. But majority of the sources for chance to poison is coming from two things from on my build, and those two things are, okay, I'm not selling that. Divergent Harrow Agony gives 40% chance to poison on hit. You can obviously scale this with a Circle of Anguish, I think, or Guild, I can't remember which one. So that's 40%. The other one you can get it is from the Assassin Ascendancy called Noxious. No. Yeah, Noxious Strike. So Noxious Strike gives you 40% chance to poison on hit. So that's another 40%. So if you do get this Noxious Strike Ascendancy from the jewels, this gives you 40%. With Divergent Harrow Agony, that gets to 80%. And then finally, with these 2 points, you get it to 105%. What that means for this build is that your explodes, anything that does physical or chaos damage, will have a 100% chance to poison. And that includes the Commandment of Blades on the enchant tier. So if you go to the enchant tier, this is Commandment of Blades. It does a certain amount of physical damage that chains. It has multiple projectiles. This will all poison as well. It has 108 chance to poison here, which means I can get higher counts of poison on my target just with this enchant. Right, so that's nice, even though it's a spell. Okay, so all the chance to poison and explain to you how it interacts with explodes. This is generally how you would gear your character for clear. And this is the other thing I want to discuss. If you are new, if you're playing a league starter for this build, do not go this. I repeat, do not go this. A lot of players are going this because it adds to your sheet DPS, your POE Ninja DPS. You don't need this. And the reason why you don't need this is that a lot of your mapping, majority of mapping, is going to be you exploding mobs and using the prolif to explode. And because the prolif scale predominantly of the mob HP, you only need to start the chain reaction going, which means you don't need your initial damage. You don't need a lot of initial damage. You just need to make sure the pops happen and that you can apply poison to the pops, and then you're scaling poison, generic poison damage or chaos damage. So that's why what I mean to say is, don't invest 9 divines on this, or 8 divines or 7 divines on this. Get a rare chest, 6 link, good defensive stats. That's all you need. Okay. Scaling defenses is your primary objective here with this build, mainly because it allows you to then push to T16s fast. You want to push to T16s fast, and you want to be able to farm rewarding content on T16s. So rewarding content on T16s, I would point it out as generally Harvest, Heist. Actually, I'm not Spectre Heist. Okay, Harvest, Expedition, and for me, Delve and the Syndicate nodes, as well as the Ether Wars altars. The reason why I've gone Harvest is because the amount of juice you get off it, or the amount of what's it called again? Crystallize. I don't know what it is. It gives quite a substantial amount, to the point where every single harvest plot you're engaging with gives you about 7 or 8 chaos around there, maybe more now. So that's the reason why I would go for this. Also, because you're spawning mobs in close proximity to one another, your explosions will kill them fast. Right. In this case, I'm not going any form of scarabs. I'm just scaling generic chance. You see, chance to contain secret growth, chance for expedition. I block everything else. Chance for these are separate anyway. So yeah, so chance for harvest, chance for expedition, and then I scale it with this stream of consciousness. I don't use scarabs at all because I sell my scarabs. That's one way I make money. I use the altars to boost a lot of rarity and quantity to make up for the fact that I don't really have much rarity and quantity from stuff like mechanics like delirium, etc. Anyway, so generally what you want to do when you first league start is you're going to try to build a character that has 100% chance to poison and is generally using some of this equipment. So you always want to start with a wasp nest because of how cheap it is and how much damage it gives. You will never upgrade past a wasp nest until you get to a point where each individual slot on your character needs like 5 or 6 divines to push into an upgrade. And when you get an upgrade, it looks something like this, where it's it's a high amount of damage and more reliable because you don't have to rely on 5 poisons on your enemies. And this is, I think, on average about 30% or 40% more damage, but this costs like 7 divines, 8 divines. You also want to start with an Embalmers as your 4 link before you get your Asanas. Embalmers will give you poison duration and a pseudo 5 link. I will also suggest use Euro Fostering, because Euro's Fostering gives you 20% chance to poison on a hit. This is for your attacks, so this is only your Spectral Helix. It also gives you maximum life, accuracy, and chaos damage, which I think is really nice. You don't have to have it 6 link because you're going to put your 4 link here for your Spectral Helix. For the rest of your gear pieces, I would suggest, okay, so Leaper's Arms is something I see a lot of people not doing. This is actually really good for the reason that you don't have to go ailment avoidance at all on your gear. So I have 0 ailment avoidance with the exception of immunity to freezing. I don't have immunity, or I don't have avoidance for shock, brittle, sept, ignite, etc. And the reason being is because shared suffering allows me to remove it. I remove all these ailments from myself to the enemies I'm hitting. Because Spectral Helix hits so often, very rarely you have ailments sticking on you for more than a second. The other reason for that is that the 40% increased duration of ailments on enemies also includes poison, which means you do more damage to your poisons. And this gives you quite a sizable amount of evasion, energy shield, and life. If you get a decent corruption implicit on it, it's nice as well, although the default 5 suppression is also pretty good. Oh yeah, and okay, one thing I see most people not doing, which is a little upsetting, is that the main way you clear packs is not through Spectral Helix. You use Spectral Helix to get your Plague Bearer up to a pretty high value, and then you use Plague Bearer to run through packs and use your explosions to prolife and kill those packs, or stragglers in those packs. For that, your Plague Bearer needs to be leveled. And I see most people have it at level 21, and that's not enough. You want it ideally at level 24, 25, and how you do that is you generally get some form of gloves, in this case I've got, or helm, right? You can get gloves or helm with increased levels of AoE and Socket of Gems. So in this case I have it up to 28. This is the min-max way of doing this. I doubt you'll get up to 28, but what you do is you have an Empower, and then you have +2 AoE and +1 Socket of Gems. This gives you 28 total. You also want increased AoE, and anomalous AoE is fine because the damage doesn't matter, right? Reduced damage doesn't matter to Plague Bearer because it doesn't scale off the increase of reduced damage on your supports. So only the increased AoE is something that you're interested in, and 62% increased AoE makes it really big. So you have a lot more coverage when you're dashing through or whirling blading through bombs. And power support, and then Withering Step is essential for this build. I've kind of discovered this. There's not many reliable ways of applying Wither. I have a Wither totem setup, not really Wither totem, but I have a Ancestral Protector with Withering Touch setup here. But Withering Step is the predominant way you're going to apply Wither to targets. If you have Anonymous Withering Step and you're leveling up to 28 like I do here, because it shares very similar gem tags to what's it called again? To Plague Bearer, you can get it up to 10 with the debuffs on this, so that's 10 right off the bat. You only need to get the 5 more, probably off Ancestral Protector and all that. Yeah. Okay, Death Rush Amethyst Ring is something I don't see many people run, and obviously POE Ninja doesn't calculate this. That's the reason why a lot of people don't like it. But to be honest, during maps, this is substantial. And it's substantial because the 100% increased damage of Adrenaline is going to apply to your explodes. It's going to apply to your poisons of your explodes. This is the reason why this is so good. And I don't see people using it. That's weird. Anyway. So Adrenaline for 3 seconds is great because you're going to prolife and kill stuff quickly, and you can constantly keep the buff up. You need at least 2 seconds for this to be worthwhile. 1 second is just too short. 3 seconds is ideal, right? And with adrenaline, you ask like, okay, this is not good for bosses, right? I'm not gonna do any damage. This is not gonna help at all with bosses. It's just resistance with bosses. That's not true. And if you have enough damage, you can actually just go this. So Writhing Jar, Halo Hybrid Flask is going to give me worms on the ground that I can kill, and those worms will give me adrenaline. The other reason why I go worms is because if you look at your passives, so I have Polymath, 1% life, energy, shield, and mana. I think I have about 13 different ascendancies, so that's 26% life and mana and energy shield I'm getting back just with 2 worms, right? And your Plague Barrier can pop those worms as well. So there's pretty good synergy here. I would suggest you get an Amethyst Ring whenever you can. Try to squeeze it in. So that's all there is to it. Generally, it's a couple of tips. Oh yes, and one more last thing. I see a lot of people going crit and using Ungils, and I disagree with that gearing strategy in this current patch for the sole reason that one, Ungils is expensive. I think it's gone down already, but still, I think it's expensive. And 2, your amulet ring slots are very competitive in this current patch because there's a lot of mirrored options that give you a lot of stats. So this one here I bought for tankier, by the way, at the start of the league. I haven't replaced it yet because it's just so hard to replace. In this case, it is 161 life. You lose like 90 life when you go to Ungils. You lose the res. You lose attributes. Yeah, you lose a lot of stuff. I mean, you do get the crit chance, but to be honest, ever since Brittle got nerfed, it's very hard to get crit hit max crit chance. Unless you get Toxic Delivery, in which case you don't have explodes and chain explodes. So yeah. So I would suggest not going crit at all and not going 9th at all, and just scaling generic like non-crit damage. Not going perfect agony as well. Okay, last thing, when you scale and go Covenant. So you scale and go Covenant when you hit a high enough level and you don't really care about dying too much. I never died from 92 onwards to 97 without a Covenant. But with a Covenant, I'm a little bit more squishier, even though my Covenant is pretty defensive. I have a insane double corrupt on this. 6% maximum life and 1% to maximum all resistances. I actually have 80 core res and 79 to the other 2 elementals just because I have imbalanced guard and these 2 points here. So with this, this is actually pretty tanky because I have this setup, so I didn't mind moving the Covenant. But Covenant gives you, on average, about 50% more DPS. But you don't need the DPS, as I mentioned. You don't really need DPS unless you're bossing, and you shouldn't be bossing this build. This whole build, the whole premise of this build, is to clear packs, to explode stuff in high density areas, and because the reason why you want to do that is because the stuff that gives you good money is expedition and harvest, and all require you to explode some form of, like, explosion is gonna help you a lot here. You can also do delirium as well, which will, I mean, I haven't spec to it, but delirium is also pretty good for that. That's all that I have to it. I have to add, this is all just tips and tricks for Trickster Helix Trickster. I know Jung gave a, I actually realized there's a reason why most people went Covenants, because Jung advised for it. I do note that Jung did not league start this, so I think he would have changed the build significantly if he did league start it, just because of how hard it was to obtain a Covenant at the league start, and I don't think he would have been comfortable with the damage, and comparatively to what he played with the Sabo, right? It's just not good for bossing. So yeah, that being said, I think that's all there is to it. Alright, peace.